Hello.
Good evening, Mr. Hayes. This is Michael Vera with Late Night in the Midlands. How are you tonight?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. I want to welcome you to the show, and I want to thank you for taking time out to be with us tonight.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
All right, great. Well, first off, I thought maybe we'd start out with a little background, some background and what led you on this path of the unknown and the unknown history and the ET and the connections there. What got you into all this? Where did it all start?
Well, it wasn't E.T. the movie, that's for sure, because I get in nightmares when I was a kid. Freaky stuff, man.
Yeah.
I think pretty much not sightings, but In Search of,
Right.
the show.
Oh
That
yes,
was the Leonard Nimoy, remember that?
I do. I do.
That was a huge influence on me when I was a teenager. And when I saw, when I read Chariots of the Gods, basically, as a teenager as well.
And
You know,
so since then you've been, I mean, you've really been researching this stuff. I mean, once you get into it, it's like there's no stopping, huh?
what's this? Yeah, for me, it's, at such an early age, I was curious. When I saw the pyramids and for the first time, and when I saw Stonehenge, or even the dinosaurs. I think, what the hell were the dinosaurs? It was crazy. So, the whole alien thing to me. Remember the movie Fire in the Sky?
I do, with Travis Walton.
Yeah, that movie blew my mind, and it just, I started young, basically, and I never grew up in a household where there was, like, religious dogma or any type of, constraints in that sense, right? Like, I never had a Christian real upbringing, or, when I was a kid, I was with my grandmother and went to church, and it was fine. It was cool, but, when I was a teenager or whatever, there was none of that in my house. Like, it was just kind of, check out whatever you want, read whatever you want, and form your own opinion. So
And see, that's how it was in my house too, and I am so thankful for that I haven't been brainwashed growing
exactly,
up.
yeah.
Yeah, that helps. And you're a little muffled. I don't know. Are you on a speakerphone, or could you? Are you maybe too close to the speaker or something like that? Or
It's the cell phone, but maybe I just hold it a little too close.
okay, all right. Well, that's fine. I mean, I can understand you. It's just a couple people, they get complaining. They want to hear it all, and I don't blame them. But so yeah, so I understand that. I mean, same here. And then I've had my own sightings and stuff too, and that's
Me too, exactly.
yeah. So what type of experience have you had? I mean, tell me about your sightings.
Well, when I was a kid, I grew up in Washington State, so from the Seattle area, and there was always Bigfoot and these type of things. But I remember being probably 8 or 9, camping one time, and seeing some sort of lights, like I wouldn't call them orbs. We seen something that kind of lit up in the forest, and then I'm following my uncles and my father to check it out more, and it definitely saw something kind of fly off. It was hard to kind of tell because of trees and it was nighttime. I couldn't really make out the craft completely because it was bright, but there were different colors. And then when I was in Cuba, in Guantanamo Bay, which I was there because my stepfather was in the military and he got stationed there. So I spent some time there, which is really interesting. And I would fish all the time. We'd go out in the bay fishing a lot. And I saw two kind of unexplained things. I saw orbs that were kind of orange. I saw those a few times, which, were strange. But then I also saw some, appeared to be, underwater type USO, I can't remember what the correct term would be, but, yeah, I saw something that looked like it was just barely above the water.
I think they call them USOs, unidentified submerged objects. Is that how it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I saw one of those for sure, and it was strange because it looked like when it was the little bit off the water, the surface, the top of it looked like pavement. You know, it was bright. It was like metallic, so you could tell something was there. But I thought it was maybe a whale or some kind of like manatee or something. But it was so big, like it was just too big. And then when I went under, we could feel like the boat move. We could, you know, something was there. It wasn't a massive thing, but it was definitely something strange.
See, and you know, because you've seen it, and that's how I feel. I know what I've seen. And for me these days, it's not about convincing anybody. The way I see it, if you don't believe me, fine. You know, I go to bed at night knowing, you know, what I see.
Exactly, me too.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, when, you know, have you seen the Pyramid on Mars? The new image?
I have, yes.
Oh, and it's so amazing. So incredible. It's like vindicating to me, you know. It's hilarious, actually.
And you know,
when
I was going to say, they also found what looks like a pyramid. Is it on Ceres too?
Yeah, Ceres. There's a pyramid and also a bunch of strange lights they can't explain.
Yeah. So what do you think? Are there maybe civilizations there, or was it us that was there before, or do we have neighbors?
I definitely think we have neighbors for sure, and there's other species of aliens. But it's also possible that some of the ruins are ours as well. You know, who's to say that we didn't acquire that knowledge, you know, hundreds of thousands of years or even millions of years ago? I mean, they found bones. They just found a jawbone, I think, in Ethiopia that's at least 3 million years old. So
yeah, I just read where they found dog mummies too in Egypt, like hundreds of them or something like that.
1 million of those.
Yeah, that's right. It was. I think it was 1 million of them. So yeah, that's a lot. But
so to me, it's, you know, when you show some, like I have a friend who's very religious, so to speak, and when they see a picture of a pyramid on Mars, it freaks them out to the point where they don't know what to do. They just ignore it, you know, because they just can't. They don't even want to think about like all of the possibilities, you know.
Right. That's exactly it. They look at it and they think, well, no, that can't be. You know, someone photoshopped it, but no, it's not photoshopped. This came directly from, you know, the people who usually hide things. I'm surprised they even show that.
Exactly. It is weird because I got that from an insider like a few days before it was released, and I was like, no way that this is. It blew my mind, and it was a clear NASA image, like straight from them. So I was like, okay, we'll see what happens. And then when it came out, I was like, wow, this is like, what are they trying to do? If they're kind of just putting this out. I know it's slow disclosure. I know that's part of it, but you know, that means there's so much there on Mars. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, and you know, that leads me to wonder what the story is with the pyramids and the Sphinx and those kinds of things here on Earth and in Egypt, and you wonder if there's any connection, because now we're seeing pyramids in other places.
Exactly, and it's freaky, and it's hilarious to me because God, people they fight you so much, and they're so, you know, bent out of shape. Oh, they're only 3,000 years old, or blah blah blah. And you know, you spend 4 years and get a bunch of debt going to college to be able to, you know, say you're an Egyptologist, right? And it's so hilarious, you know. Like, wow, really? Like, let's talk about the pyramid on Mars, pyramid on Ceres, who knows where else, and then let's talk about how do they even get from Mars here. You know?
Exactly. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. You got pyramids on so far 3 different places, and I wouldn't doubt if they're on the moon too. And you got to wonder, okay, so they didn't have a universal internet, right? They weren't looking up the plans on the net. So how did all that happen?
It's ridiculous. It's funny. It's great to me. It's beautiful. It's truly the wonder of God. Because the universe is infinite and everlasting, right? So, what was in the doors? What do you say when the doors of perception are cleansed, things will appear as they truly are, infinite.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think I kind of wonder why they're telling us, and I think that it comes to they've slowly been breaking it out, so this way they could say, oh, see,
Yeah.
there is life, and they don't have to say that they've been lying to us.
Right, they got to do it slowly. That's how they have to do it.
Yeah, yeah.
And plus, who knows what's like around the corner, and who knows what they're scared of, and who knows what's really going on, behind the curtain.
Well, that's true too. That's the whole thing. We don't know, and if they had kept honest with us from the start, yeah, there's going to be people who can't handle it, but that's why we have doctors on this planet for those people. But the rest of us want to know.
Yeah, I want to know. I mean, it's our right as a citizen of Earth, basically.
It is. It is. So the pyramids and even the Sphinx. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I would guess that the Great Pyramid was, at least this is how I understand it, that was built first, and it was probably built by some massive intelligence, and then the other ones were copies.
Yeah. Okay. See, this is how it is. Like there's definitely pyramids that were built 3,000 years ago, but those are, we could tell which ones those were,
Yeah.
When you build on top of older stuff, I mean, obviously the older stuff's older. So the pyramid field and the Great Pyramid and all that, that's pre-flood. That's ancient, because when you get down to the core, they're megalithic, amazing stone blocks, and it's just, lost technology. They have saw markings, whether they're laser, digital saws, or however they did it, you could see in the stone. You just can't do that. So, I mean, those things have to have been from a technology and a culture that's, lost in time, obviously. And then on top of that, you're going to have more modern stuff. So, I would say most of the pyramids are modern, but the real pyramid, like the Giza pyramids and the Sphinx, those are ancient. And when they first went in there, and the archaeologists in the 1800s, they found salt in the Great Pyramid, sea salt, and there is evidence of seashells and everything on the Giza plateau and within the pyramid stones itself. So, however old it is, it's old enough to have been flooded at least once.
Wow, that's amazing. So I mean, but how much do you think they're hiding about it? I mean, do you think that they've got anything out of there, or do you think it's always been empty?
Nah, they pretty much went in there and documented when they were able to go in. So I don't think anything. Like, it definitely wasn't a tomb, because they never found bodies, and it doesn't make sense that it would be a tomb anyways. As for treasures, there's no real area for treasure. I mean, it's nothing to do with gold or any of this. It's some sort of machine, ancient machine that could have been, used for uplifting consciousness. Who knows? I mean, it's some sort of field that works together with the way the stones are, the way the quartz is, the water that was obviously prevalent. And then you have all the underground tunnels and chambers and all that stuff as well. So it definitely was used for something, but it had no real treasure type value.
Some speculate that it might have been used as a power source, or that maybe they were able to, and I know this is getting out there a little, but the truth is always crazier, right? Some say that it might have been used to maybe transport people, teleport people, maybe from here to these other pyramids, wherever else.
Yeah, like stargates, I'm sure.
Yeah.
You got, some say it's a weapon, some say, I think of it as more of a consciousness elevator, like to generate, because whoever built them had the understanding of the cycles of time and the procession and golden ages and dark ages. So I think, before the flood, it was kind of used to keep us elevated in tune with nature, creative, not warlike, of course. So I think that was kind of, during the last phase, what it might have been for. But I think it's been there for millions of years, actually, and it's something that can be seen from space. So it might even just be like a landing guide or something, So
Sure.
It's complex, man.
So now I wonder if the next probe they send up, say to Mars or somewhere, if they're going to land it near this pyramid, or are they going to keep avoiding it like they did the face? Because
you think they would go straight to it and see what it's about.
Yeah, you would think so. And if you look around the face, what's even more interesting is around that face, you could see what looks like pyramids nearby it. So it looks like, it might have been some kind of city. And almost, it would appear to me that these things were built so somebody would see them from the sky. What do you think? Because you wouldn't notice it if you were right there, right? If you were on the surface, it would just look like a big mountain, maybe.
Yeah, that's why pyramids are peculiar. They stick out from space.
So, what does your research, all the research you've done, what does it tell you about the human origins? Where do you think we originally came from? What's your idea? See, I kind of think that, we may have one time been on one of these other planets in our solar system, like Mars maybe, and somehow we ended up here. But I don't know. So that's what I'm wondering. What do you think? How did we get here?
Well, I believe definitely we were on Mars for sure. Humanoid presence was on Mars. Whether we started there and came here, or whether we developed here and went there for a little while and then came back, I don't know. But I definitely, I have dreams about it too. So I've always kind of had a weird connection with Mars. So it was never scary or a big deal to me to think that there have been past civilizations there. So I think Mars was and is still like Earth. I think they put the whole red filter on there just to, but because they've got caught many times showing pictures of blue skies, and now they're finding methane. So I think what happened was maybe an asteroid strike or some sort of nuclear war, maybe destroyed the planet. And as far as Earth, it's the same thing. Evolution exists to a certain extent. And then there's always something that comes in and genetically manipulates the genome. So, and I talk about in the book as well that there's no like the reptilian thing. There's so much interesting aspects of that whole theory as well. But if this Earth is billions of years old, there's nothing to say that we haven't been visited many times by many different species. There's the Greys. There's all the mythology that talks about us coming from Sirius. There's the Pleiades. There's a popular choice as well. I believe there's just a whole bunch of alien different species and humanoid species and this and that. And there's probably even like a Star Trek intergalactic council that kind of runs over things and oversees. And we don't know what aspect, what Earth is in the grand scheme of the universal thing. We don't know what restrictions or what. I always thought Earth was more like a Disneyland for aliens, especially at this point where it's beyond the point of actually meddling, because I think for the most part aliens are good, right? So that's why you'll see certain instances where they mess with the nuclear capabilities, right? They'll come in certain. Yeah, so I think that for the most part it's good. However, maybe the ones that have been here and been in control here might be the evil negative faction. But I think for the most part, a lot of the stuff you see in Hollywood and all of the movies is just it's just kind of propaganda and predictive programming for them to, because that's like their trump card, the alien invasion, right? And whether it's fake, or not, but that's like their big goal to get like a global control. So I wouldn't be too worried about that, because usually it's just because you see some spaceships flying around doesn't mean it's not flown by the military.
Right, exactly. And there are people who say, well, you don't know, all these crafts could be military, and I don't believe that for a minute. I think that, I know what I seen wasn't military, and they'll say, well, how do you know for sure? Well, I have to say, honestly, sure, there could have been a human in this, but I've never seen anything the size. I just think it was huge. We're talking football field, and I've never seen anything like that come off the airport. So if they have stuff like this, I'd like to know where they're hiding it, because we would find it. I mean, you can't hide these things, and even underground they're so huge. I mean, I guess it could be done, but I don't know.
I would say that 70% are military secret programs, and about 30% is actual real bona fide alien stuff. A lot of the black triangles we see is definitely ours, and I think those are secret space program type technology that we've been developing. But yeah, there's just stuff you see that's clearly the movements they make and the capabilities they show is nothing to do with us. And if you watch all of the International Space Station feeds and the ESA feeds, they're freaking flying around in orbit all the time. they can't stop it. They're just all over the freaking place. It's crazy.
Yeah, and see, so what that tells me is that you've got these ET craft that are in our sky, and I agree with you. I think probably about 30% of them are ET, and the rest might be military. So we got these things in our sky, and it's like they I don't know if they let people see them or if something goes wrong where they just get seen, but it seems like they want people to see them. But yet, I'm wondering who's keeping it secret. Whose idea to keep it secret? Is it the government's or is it the ETs? And if that's the case, how did the ETs get all the governments to keep quiet about it for as long as they had? I mean, I know some governments are speaking out about it now, but they didn't for a while.
Yeah, that's the good thing. I mean, it might not even be all the ETs. It might just be the main, telling the main few power structures to keep everybody else in line, I guess.
And somebody had asked why they would fly those crafts where people could see them. Well, if you're talking about the ETs, I mean, maybe they don't expect to be seen. Maybe the lighting goes just right, and they appear. They probably, like our military has cloaking technology now, where they get a tank to blend right in with the woods. You wouldn't even notice. So, but if the lighting goofs up, you see it. So I think the same thing would be with these UFOs, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, and, maybe they have who knows what their thought process is as well,
Yeah, so...
Who knows what type of beings they are? It's freaky, who knows?
Well, I hope that, if they are good, and they seem to be, because they haven't done anything to us yet that I know of, although there are people who blame the ETs for everything that's going on here. So... Well,
they want to blame an evil ET that is in control of certain governments.
Yeah.
Or, which I could, you can make a case for, because, the world's pretty messed up, and it seems to be like they get off on these sacrifices when, if you look at the history of England, like John Dee, the sorcerer, and all that, and go into the Illuminati stuff and the occult, some of the occult teachings, it wouldn't be a stretch to say that at the highest forms there is an ET, an evil ET presence that might have been in control for a long time,
Yeah, and I wouldn't mind if the good ETs would come and get them out of here because it doesn't seem like the human race is going to step up and do anything. We
Yeah,
see.
and they got us now perfectly too. They're like, everyone's a zombie basically. Everybody's pilled into oblivion. It's man, it's hard to even walk around outside and just look at people. It's hard, man, because when you're aware, and then you kind of just, it's tough, dude.
It is. It is. Well, hey, hang on with us for a moment. We've got to take a break, and then we'll. Good evening. Welcome back. You sound much better now.
Okay.
All right, that's great. All right, so sorry for the inconvenience, but my listeners were getting on my case, so.
No problem.
But the giants. What about the giants? Have you seen evidence of giants, and what is their story? Because I believe in it, but there's a lot of people you bring it up and they say, "Oh, those are all fake pictures. That's not real."
No way. There's so much evidence of giants. Of course, there's a lot of Photoshop as well, but it's even all over the Bible in ancient cultures. Italy, even the term Cyclopean architecture, right? Like all the megalithic buildings in ancient Greece were attributed to the Cyclops, right? Who were giants. So the giants are amazing, incredible, probably the most interesting part of Earth's past, and you could see evidence within the writings from the early 1800s. There are pictures. They have found, like in the Lovelock Cave in Nevada, the Winnemucca Museum down there has one of the giant skulls. You could also see elongated skulls in Peru. So the giants and the elongated skulls are very interesting. And it's all part of the Smithsonian cover-up because, before they decided, like the Royal Academy decided that evolution was going to be the thing that they were going to pigeonhole everybody with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, before that, pretty much everyone had accepted that there were ancient giants and Atlantis and lost cultures. There was no real dogma to say otherwise. And when the pioneers were going west, they found a bunch of mounds, right, in the Ohio Valley region, pretty much all over in the Midwest. So a lot of times when they excavated these mounds, they were finding 8-9 foot giant skeleton bones. But of course, a lot of these got swallowed up by universities and Smithsonian and lost to private collectors. So there is evidence. It's just hard to come by.
I see. Now, why do you suppose, I mean, I know this is probably a stupid question because I think we all know the answer, but why do you suppose that mainstream science has kept this from us? Why is it so important that we don't know that part of our history?
Well, because it's against what they teach, basically. If they wouldn't have imposed this Darwinian theory, then it'd be a lot more open to talk about. But since they're not allowed to, basically, right? They can't really jeopardize their careers, So, because that's what it boils down to with everything, right? I mean, 9/11.
Right.
5 minutes of research pretty much you'll find out that whole official story is bullcrap, right?
Yeah.
The architects and engineers, there's over 3,000 or something, pretty much listed and detailed every aspect of that thing.
Oh, yeah, there was over 3,000 of them who come forward, and you tell me how 3,000 architects could come forward and testify, and it's like it just blows over everybody's heads. Like, yeah, so whatever. Mainstream said that's not true, so it's not.
Yeah, because they're not allowed to report on it because, they'll have no career. They'll get fired, they'll get killed. if you're in a position where, you're a professor or you're whatever, you can't, very few will actually risk their mortgage and their livelihood for the truth,
Right.
And, the ones who do are brave and amazing, and some of them they probably just ignore, but that's what it boils down to is money. Like, they have everybody controlled by way of money. You look at the generals, you look at the military. How come some cool general hasn't said, hey, enough of this, and marched on Washington with this force, right? Everything's so compartmentalized.
Yeah.
How they're able to keep everyone just focused on what they're supposed to do and their job, and everyone's easily replaced. So everybody's compromised, basically,
Yeah, and what really scares me, and I don't mean scared like I'm in the corner shaking, but what really scares me now is that, like you mentioned, it's all about the money. Well, this financial system doesn't look, it's on crutches right now.
Yeah, and this is, for me, Ron Paul is my president.
I hear you.
I was never into politics, but, when I heard him speak, it resonated on a level where it's like, wow, this guy's saying something true, and then you kind of look him up or look into what he's been talking about. I was like, wow, this guy's been talking about this for 30 years, 20 years. I mean, this guy's always talked about this, and now stuff like this, now it's happening, so, Ron Paul's been talking about the Federal Reserve and the fractional reserve lending and.
Well, yeah, and look at these other countries who are wanting their gold, and the United States is telling them, well, no, you got to wait so many years, and it's because that gold, if there is any in there, it's gold plated.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, that's why Texas is funny, because that's why Texas is under attack, because they straight up went to New York and pulled all their reserves and got all their gold and said this is now belongs to Texas. This is non-confiscatable. So they're under attack. And this is my next book, one of my next books, The Suppressed History of America Part 2, a sequel to my first one, talks about all this. It goes into the Rothschilds and Lincoln and Jackson, Andrew Jackson, and the fight for America has always been a fight against a central bank.
Yeah, well, and that's what we need to do. We need to round up not only the bankers, but, everybody in power in this country needs to be, and they all need to be rounded up, kicked out of office, and they need to be tried. And we need to start over. And I don't know how that happens, in a peaceful way, but.
That's what Ron Paul said, too. He said, you know what? If you do this correctly, that's what has to be done. A lot of people will hate me. It'll be changed. A lot of people, it'll be insane for a little while, but that's the only way it can be done. And that's how Andrew Jackson did it. People hated on him after, he kicked all the bankers out and everything was messed up. So, but that's literally the only way it could be done.
Yeah, that is. And I've said it, all along. It'll take, maybe not every one of us, but it'll take a great number of us, and it will take our military, our sheriffs need to be on our side, and right now, things look shaky. I keep telling people World War III's already started, because if you look at everything that's going on, I think there's something like how many was it? Like 50 some wars going on in the world right now. Around the globe. One of my guests said the other night, he said most of them you don't even hear about. They're just,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you got ISIS murdering people in Tunisia, murdering people in Turkey, murdering people all over Iraq and Syria, So you got this constant state of fear, constant state of warfare. All this stuff that's going on in Ukraine, which you don't hear anything about ever on American news. It's
well, and I wonder what would the ETs think about this? I wonder, and we hear often, well, they're not, there's a universal law, they're not allowed to get involved, and I'm thinking, if you've got incredible technology, now would be a good time to come and free the people. But here's the problem, and I see what their issue might be. There's a great deal of people, if they seen, like crafts in our sky and they landed, the first thing they would think is, oh, it's the false flag from the government. So, these ETs would probably get shot at and get bricks thrown at them and God knows what else. So, I don't know where this is going to lead, but I know it's heading down a bad road right now, and you're right.
They're worried as hell. They're whatever's coming in September. They're worried about whatever that is, right? They're worried about Nibiru finally showing up. You got all kinds of amateur astronomers spotting it. So they're worried about that. If it comes into orbit, what's going to happen? If they're deploying lasers and stuff in space to be able to destroy asteroids, so that tells you that they're worried about something coming. All the messages in the crop circle are really freaky. They're giving dates.
Dates?
So yeah, and so it's September, sometime in September, weird stuff's going to be happening, supposedly. And then, World War III and the whole nuclear thing, I'm never worried about that because it's unnecessary. Like, we're at the point now where the technology is so advanced and the money is just spoiled so many people, right? I live in South Beach, so every time I walk outside my door, it's Ferraris and wealth you can even freaking imagine. It's ridiculous. Yeah. So there's no one is going to ruin that with a nuclear bomb that will basically make the whole neighborhood and real estate and everything of value obsolete. So I don't worry about those type of things. Besides, like, if Russia or China wanted to conquer us, it'd be pretty simple. You just turn off the lights.
Well, so, I think that's what, if they used a nuke, that's what it would be used for, basically an EMP.
EMP, of course. Yeah, I'm telling you something, I've lived through hurricanes, and 2 weeks without electricity is scary. And I've seen, when Katrina went through Miami first, and then I went and kind of checked it out and helped out a little up along the coast later on, a couple weeks later. But, any New York City, for example, if New York City lost power for a month, it would just eat itself. You wouldn't have to do anything but watch the inner cities, watch the ghetto, watch the crime, watch all of the people who aren't prepared for anything, let alone 3 days without electricity.
Oh, if you went 3 days without electricity, let alone, if there was an EMP, we could go years. You can forget it. You're going to at least be in the dark for a good week, and you'd be surprised how much damage people will cause before any kind of authorities get in there to take order. So if they do it all, by the time they come in to round them up, pretty much 80% of their jobs will be done already. Yeah, exactly. People won't. Nowadays, too, I don't know what's wrong with people. I don't know if technology has
messed them up,
embedded in their brains or what, and screwed them up. But, people are just crazy nowadays.
I'll tell you what. The Internet has basically destroyed the attention span, right? So our attention spans are shot. Then, like, to see addiction, the constant checking, like just a smartphone, it's just transhumanism, man. You're merging with a machine without even realizing it. And then people are just dumb as rocks nowadays. There's just like this sick, weird. I don't know what it is, man. It's bad. It's bad, whatever it is. But people are just not there. It's just not happening anymore. I went through hurricanes and I explored and traveled the world and was very fortunate to see a lot of things before this age we live in, and now I just look at like, dang, I couldn't imagine. It's just crazy. It's just almost unbelievable to think about how sensitive everybody is. Everybody's so freaking sensitive.
They are. I was just saying that today. I says, it won't be long. They were talking about things like the Confederate flag. And,
oh, my God. It's out of control, man.
It is. And people don't understand. I had to tell my own daughter. She's got a head like a rock. And I told her, I said, it's not about the flag or the racism. It's about first bringing that down and then bringing the next thing down. And what they're doing is they're taking America apart piece by piece.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, you want to talk about what flags stand for. I was just saying last night, so what about the American flag? Let's kind of evaluate that for a little while. I mean, how much evil has that flag been a part of? But we're not.
Right, now they're like, oh, you know, we're going to ban Gone with the Wind. It's like, what?
I seen that too, yeah. They want to take Gone with the Wind off the market. And Amazon said they're going to stop selling any items with the Confederate flag on it. And I'm thinking,
they pulled a Civil War game from one of the app stores. Just because it had, like, the flag in the background.
Well,
it's unbelievable, ridiculous. And again, like, when this was funny because I just turned in the sequel to the book, The Express History, right? So I just kind of turned it in, so it's still kind of fresh in my mind, more so than the aliens thing at this point. But so to see, and all the stuff I wrote about, you know, is our history, right? Because it's the suppressed history of America. So I'm writing basically after, you know, basically from the War of 1812 up until, you know, John Wilkes Booth, right? So it covers a lot of ground. And the whole thing of slavery was really, really insane because being from the West Coast, you know, our experience and our view of that is totally different because we really don't have that. You know, it's more of a pioneer family community type thing. So I was never really exposed to any of that, you know, racist type of things, you know. So when I went to the South for the first time, I really didn't experience it, maybe a little kind of jokingly when I was younger, but I saw the evidence, you know, I saw like what had happened, and going through the South is definitely a learning, a unique experience, right, traveling through Alabama and kind of going to the South and being in Atlanta is definitely a cultural difference, you know.
There is, absolutely.
But it didn't really, it didn't become really more racist till after Obama became president, you know, which I started to notice, and it started getting really racist, especially during after a second re-election. You know, if they asked you on the street if you were going to vote for Obama and you were like no, I mean, they were like, you're racist, you know. I was like, what? But then I went up north, right, and then I went up to like Philadelphia because after, you know, I was able to go to the Benjamin Franklin Philosophical Library.
Then you really seen racism, didn't you?
Yeah. Then the really, I mean, I could not believe how racist it was in Philadelphia. Downtown Philadelphia. I went there I'm pretty much very lucky. You know, I got to see the journals, Lewis and Clark, and I got to talk to some really cool guys about it. They're really smart, educated guys, you know, curators of museums, right?
Right.
And I'm just this high school dropout who somehow wrote a book. I'm pretty much the only high school dropout who's ever held the Lewis and Clark, you know, journals in his hands. So that's pretty cool.
Well,
But
I was going to say, I see what you're talking about because I'm originally from Rochester, New York. And in New York, I see racism. I mean, it's horrible in many parts of the city and even the state. I mean, it really is. Then I came to South Carolina, and it's like it didn't exist. I mean, blacks and whites get along fine here. I've not seen any problems. I've never had one. I've been here 8 years. I can't think of one bad experience. Not one. And you know, in New York, I could have a bad experience every single day.
Oh yeah, New York's crazy. Yeah. New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Wilmington, Delaware.
Yeah.
You know, I was shocked. I was unprepared. Then it was you learning about, well, you know, slavery was everywhere, man. Like slavery was in Delaware, New York, everywhere. It wasn't a north-south thing. It was everywhere. It was basically how the Western Hemisphere was built, man. From Rio de Janeiro to Canada, all points in between, all of it built from slavery. So, you know, then you learn that blacks owned slaves as well. So then you're like, wait a minute. and Southern blacks. So then it becomes an issue of money, right? So if you were in a position of wealth, naturally you would have slaves, no matter if you're white, black, or Chinese. So that's kind of what it really boils down to.
And
Obviously,
thank you for saying that, because that's what I was pounding into people yesterday. I'm like, it wasn't just about, the North wasn't trying to go to war to free the slaves. They were going to war because they weren't getting their cut.
Exactly. Yeah, Lincoln, you think he cared? Like, he specifically said a few times what his thoughts were, and it's not what what you've been told. It was free money. It was free labor.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was. Yeah, it was nationwide. It wasn't just the South.
No, not at all. And it's horrible. And thank God it's been eradicated. But at the same time, we live in still slavery, because we live in digital slavery and financial slavery.
Is that a real? Hold on a second. Is that a real picture?
It's from WIS.
Oh, WIS News has just released a picture of the White House, and it's rainbow. They've got one side's got pink, one's purple, and one's green and yellow, and they've got the lights on it, so it's rainbow. So now, everybody, we know the truth about Obama. We've been waiting for it. He's come out.
Now he and his tranny wife can come out.
Yeah, exactly. Now they can come out. Tell us what they really eat. But sorry about that. Yeah, but anyways, you're right. I mean, the kids are taught in school today that the North came and they were like the superheroes. They came and freed the slaves because they went to war. And when I moved in the South is when I learned the truth. Before that, I really thought that too. I wasn't doing this show. I was asleep like a lot of people were. And then I moved here and started, I had nothing to do but research, and I was amazed. And 9/11 woke me up completely. Once that happened, that was it. You can't fool me no more.
Oh yeah. Well, 9/11 for me, I remember I just come from the recording studio all night, and then I couldn't really, because it's hard to sleep after those type of sessions. So I couldn't really sleep. I remember kind of turning on the news. I just turned on TV in general, and just in the morning, and I remember seeing it happen because I was in Miami, and it was it was on like 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock, whatever time it was, and I remember seeing the plane hit and seeing the whole thing, and then I remember thinking that it's kind of weird, this is whatever, but as soon as I saw the implosions, I was like, oh no. Hell no, because I had seen demolitions before in Vegas,
Well,
and I already been like aware of this sort of thing because I was already into like William Cooper, Behold a Pair of Horse, and I was already kind of like aware. But as soon as I saw the looked like squibs going off, you could see it, and just pancaking down. I mean, it was just like no way was that caused by some plane hitting it,
No, and there was a video of people on the ground who were saying there was just an explosion, and as a matter of fact, the very first newscast that came out that morning said we're breaking here for a moment. We just reported there was just an explosion in the World Trade Center, and then it was changed to a plane hit. So
there you go. Yep. Yeah. And as soon as they said the mumbo jumbo about the passport, like the terrorist passport, I was like, oh hell no! I was like, that was it for me, man. I turned that off.
Yeah, I know. I like how everything gets destroyed, even the building's dust, but the passport made it.
Yeah, I was like, no, we're good.
I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's amazing. And now Bin Laden's floating around in the ocean somewhere, apparently.
Oh yeah, that was another one. That was like Mayday or whatever. Wasn't it Mayday when they announced that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the hidden history. I mean, what should people know? I mean, what you just went over about the South and the North, I think is excellent, because that's what a Southern historian told me a few years ago here in South Carolina, and I mean, you just totally matched it. So I love that when people tell me, and I know things are seriously true, because it's not just one person. You get different sources who tell you the same thing. So and that surprises some people. they're like, no, the textbooks say this. Winners write the history. I'm sure you found that as you've been.
Yeah, that's what Hitler said. No one will ever ask the victor if he told the truth.
That's right. Yeah, and it's true. It's 100% true.
Napoleon, he's like, history is a lie agreed upon.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, I mean, as far as the South and the North and Civil War, the Civil War was incredible and it was horrible. I mean, a lot of the advancements we have in medicine kind of comes from the Civil War because it was so. I mean, there was no medicine back then. It was basically a shot of whiskey and that was it.
Yeah.
So it was a disgusting, horrible thing, but it was a way for the Rothschilds basically to divide the nation. At the same time, they financed and made money because, they want to have war because they benefit, right? They finance the South, they finance the North, they supply guns and weapons to both, So to them, it's a game. But the whole plan was to keep them fighting long enough to be able to divide them up. Because France wanted a part, England wanted a part, and Spain was coming through Mexico. So they just kind of waited in the wings to see what would happen, And they really got mad at Lincoln. Lincoln was the one who really screwed them over because he went to them for a loan, basically, right? Because war is expensive.
Right.
He didn't want to do it, but he had no choice, and they said, sure, we'll give you the loan. We'll give you whatever you need at, 30% interest. And he was like, no, too much. So what he did was went back and kind of figured out the scam of the Federal Reserve, right? The great game, the central loan, the banking scam. They loan governments money, right?
Right.
So once he figured that out, he created the greenbacks, and the greenbacks were debt-free American money that had nothing to do with the Rothschilds or didn't owe any sort of allegiance to any foreign banks, right? Because he found out that most of the central banks and all of where the money was 80% of it came from English banks and French banks. It came from the Rothschilds, basically. So he created the greenbacks, and the greenbacks were how he financed the war, but at the same time, it was also this new debt-free money issued to Americans, and business was booming, right? People had money, right? Soldiers had money finally. The economy had money, So it was a good thing. It'd be like if the government gave everybody $20,000 on their income tax return, right? That really infuriated the Rothschilds, and then once he did that, then he also freed the slaves with the Emancipation Act. So then he really put the bullseye in his forehead,
So they killed him off, and a lot of times when you go against the establishment, that's what happens. You wind up getting offed, and
exactly.
Like Kennedy as well. And
yep.
And do you see that history repeating itself today? Because I kind of do.
I do, but I don't see anyone brave enough to go against him. Like Ron Paul, basically, to me, proved, when he went on the debate, he just blew everybody's minds with a couple minutes he was given. He pretty much proved that whole thing's a fraud, and there's no way in hell they were going to let him be president. So any president, including Obama, knows better, right? Because could you imagine the amazing spectacle they could do now? I mean, if they wanted to kill you in public.
Oh, yeah. Well, they would just say that you were a terrorist. They had links of you being ready to go fight with ISIS. And
oh, yeah.
They'd make up the story.
Some lone nut, some lone racist, white supremacist guy had to kill Obama, but it'd be spectacular.
Oh, yeah. They'd slip a cell phone in your back pocket, and it would have all the numbers to the heads of the KKK. And
oh, of course.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They know what they're doing. I mean, the CIA is that's what they're there for.
Yeah, that's their job. So that's why I don't think we'll see that, because they won't allow any president to get that close to being president in the first place. And if he does become president and gets a little too smart for his own good, they'll probably give him a couple warnings and he'll know better, you know?
Right. Well, what do you think would happen if our military finally woke up and says, you know what, enough of this, and turn their guns on them? They'd probably call in the UN and their other buddies at that point, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. It's compartmentalized, so if one general tried that, he'd be sequestered before anyone would even know what was going on.
Yeah.
So, it's sad. I mean, we're in a position where it's just, I don't see how we could actually pull it off, really.
I don't either. I think the only way we'd be able to do it, and it wouldn't be without a whole lot of bloodshed, is if that every one of us came together and just, and I don't mean come together like in Baltimore where you're burning down mom and pop shops and flipping over cars. I mean come together and go where the evil is, where the problems are. Like, you go to the White House, you arrest the president. I mean, if there's 300 million of us, he might hesitate to, swing on any of us. And,
That's what I'm saying, yeah. You'd have to have a whole, 100 million people show up.
Well, and even then they would probably, blow a bomb off in there and say, oh, it was a terrorist who did it.
True.
Yeah, but we have to do, I mean, at some point, if we ever want to be free again, we have to do it, because we're not free right now.
Now, it's an illusion, and that's why traveling is important. And if you're young, I advise you to, travel as much as you can before you do anything stupid,
yeah.
Blowing all your money and having kids or getting a drug habit or a bunch of tattoos, travel first, see the world, and then when you come back, you'll be a lot more prepared and wiser.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got my 16-year-old son. He's with me for the summer, and I'm training him in this with the radio show and all that. And I'm not pushing it on him, but if it's something he enjoys enough and wants to take over later, in life, then it'd be nice to, I want my kids to know the truth, and I want them to know that it's okay to fight back. They need to know, and that there's ways they can do it. So, I'm doing my part. Now everybody, needs to do theirs. Did you hear about the woman who might do 3 decades in prison because she cured her son of Crohn's disease with hemp oil?
Unbelievable.
It's amazing. I mean,
unbelievable.
That's what I mean. We're in a prison state right now. We're not
and
free.
Every time I see a commercial or an advertisement or somebody Sean, the guy from Napster, he donated a bunch of money to it's like, dude, they already can cure anything. The money's in the treatment.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. We know there's cures for cancer.
We know it.
I know for a fact because my wife and I, we put together a contraption that another doctor had suggested to us. And it's just nothing more than baking soda and black syrup, maple syrup. And we mixed it up, warmed it up, gave it to him, and with 3 weeks he was fine. They didn't find no more cancer in his liver or his bladder. So yeah, and I wouldn't make up these lies. It's true. So people, what do you got to lose? I mean, try it.
Absolutely, better than the chemo, which I can understand anyone taking that in the first place.
Yeah, I know. I watched my mother go through it, and she was
my grandfather saying, yeah,
she was fine until they put the needle in her and started pumping in the poison. And after that, it was over.
And that's what did Bob Marley in too. Bob Marley, the CIA gave him cancer, but he went for the initial radiation treatment to New York, and by the time he got to the doctor in Germany who could have cured him, he was too late.
Yeah, and this is the thing. And then you look at the American Cancer Society, and on their website they make a disclaimer statement that we do not agree that baking soda can cure cancers, and they mention a couple doctors on there who have been curing people.
Wow.
But they say that, and I'm thinking with all the billions of dollars you've taken in for cancer research, you haven't put together one research study and tried the baking soda? I mean, it would have cost what, a couple $100 maybe? For
a big budget for baking soda.
Yeah, I know, and they don't do it, but they do all these other ones. Well, let's try radiation in the brain. Let's see what that does.
Oh God,
Unbelievable. So, lost civilizations. Looking back at any of the lost civilizations, is there more than we hear about in mainstream? And have you found any to have gone down maybe the way we're going down now? I mean, do you see that history repeating itself?
Well, I've always thought that America was the modern day Atlantis. So maybe not like being swallowed up into the ocean, but just metaphorically. And that's kind of what Atlantis is in the first place. I mean, I don't think there's like one real Atlantis. I mean, there's a bunch of them. Anything that's pre-flood, though, that's sort of an Atlantean type civilization, right? And I think there's a bunch of them that are just waiting to be found at the bottom of the ocean, for sure. Plus, there's probably many more that are still buried underneath the sands. I mean, Egypt, 70% is still buried underneath the sands. They're finding all kinds of stuff in Saudi Arabia, the satellite technology. Plus Persia is incredible. I mean, we can't even go into Iran. If they found all that crazy stuff in Iraq, imagine what's still in Iran, I have books, like the sketchbooks from the 1800s of Chapis, who was a famous French archaeologist and illustrator. And his sketchings of Iran and, like, Persepolis, right, in Persia, show the little declamp mark things, right, that the ancient architecture had. You know what I'm talking about? The metal clamps.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, I've found just in the sketchbooks at least 4 other places that we're not even familiar with that show the same type of archaeology. We're talking ancient Crete, places in ancient Italy, and so you found the proof of these things in Peru, and Bolivia, Egypt, Iran, all over the world. And then you throw in the elongated skulls aspect, and you're not going to tell me that every single elongated skull was because it was binding. In the first place, there had to have been a true elongated skull for them to even want to copycat that, because there's no reason why they'd do that in the first place. So they're imitating something, right? And then most of it is imitating what? I mean, were the reptilians elongated skulls? I mean, who was this culture that had the elongated skull that lived on Earth at some point in history, right? So there's just so much. And I think when you see Malta, this massive megalithic, amphitheater-looking thing, I can't remember what it's called, but it's, it's there. I mean, and the fact that they built it in stone, is really, really incredible, because that means they understood how long it could last, If you want to build something that's going to be around for thousands and thousands of years, why not build it in a material that can last that long? And, I think our ancient cities are going to be standing around, 2,000, 3,000 years from now.
That's true. And somebody had just asked about reptilians, too, as whether they were real. And so you think that these skulls, I mean, they could be of reptilian in nature, right?
Yeah, we don't know. It could be, but I mean, we do know for sure that every ancient culture has a myth related to the reptilians, and a lot of them are very, very, very adamant in saying that they even gave the knowledge. And there are some of the, like for me, when I think about the.
Uh-oh. I think we lost you. Yep, I'm not hearing them. Well, I'll tell you what, it's time for a break. So if you could or something like that.
A million of those.
Yeah, that's right. It was. I think it was 1 million of them. So yeah, that's a lot. But
so to me, it's when you show some, like I have a friend who's very religious, so to speak, and when they see a picture of a pyramid on Mars, it freaks them out to the point where they don't know what to do. They sort of ignore it, because they just can't. They don't even want to think about like all of the possibilities, you know.
Right. That's exactly it. They look at it and they think, well, no, that can't be. Someone photoshopped it, but no, it's not photoshopped. This came directly from, the people who usually hide things. I'm surprised they even show that.
Exactly. It is weird because I got that from an insider like a few days before it was released, and I was like, no way that this is. It blew my mind, and it was a clear NASA image, like straight from them. So I was like, okay, we'll see what happens. Then when it came out, I was like, wow, this is like, what are they trying to do if they're kind of just putting this out? I know it's slow disclosure. I know that's part of it, but that means there's so much there on Mars that it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and that leads me to wonder what the story is with the pyramids and the Sphinx and those kinds of things here on Earth and in Egypt, and you wonder if there's any connection, because now we're seeing pyramids in other places.
Exactly, and it's freaky, and it's hilarious to me because God, people they fight you so much, and they're so bent out of shape. Oh, if they're only 3,000 years old, or blah blah blah. And you spend 4 years and get a bunch of debt going to college to be able to, say you're an Egyptologist, right? And it's so hilarious, like wow, really? Like let's talk about the pyramid on Mars, pyramid on Ceres, who knows where else, and then let's talk about how do they even get from Mars here, I can't remember what the correct term would be, but yeah, I saw something that looked like it was just barely above the water.
I think they call them USOs, unidentified submerged objects. Is that how it?
Yeah, exactly.
Well,
I saw one of those for sure, and it was strange because it looked like when it was the little bit off the water, the surface, the top of it looked like pavement. It was bright. It was like metallic, so you could tell something was there. But I thought it was maybe a whale or some kind of like manatee or something. But it was so big, like it was just too big. And then when I went under, we could feel like the boat move because something was there. It wasn't a massive thing, but it was definitely something strange.
See, and because you've seen it, and that's how I feel. I know what I've seen. And for me these days, it's not about convincing anybody. The way I see it, if you don't believe me, fine. I go to bed at night knowing, what I see.
Exactly, me too.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like, when, have you seen the pyramid on Mars? The new image? I
have, yes.
Oh, and it's so amazing. So incredible. It's like vindicating to me, it's hilarious actually.
And when I was gonna say they also found what looks like a pyramid. Is it on Ceres too?
Yeah, Ceres. There's a pyramid and also a bunch of strange lights they can't explain.
Yeah. So what do you think? Are there maybe civilizations there, or was it us that was there before, or do we have neighbors?
I definitely think we have neighbors for sure, and there's other species of aliens. But it's also possible that some of the ruins are ours as well. Who's to say that we didn't acquire that knowledge, hundreds of thousands of years or even millions of years ago? I mean, they found bones. They just found a jawbone, I think, in Ethiopia, at least 3 million years old. So
yeah, I just read where they found dog mummies, too, in Egypt. Like, hundreds of them.
Hello.
Good evening, Mr. Hayes. This is Michael Vera with Late Night in the Midlands. How are you tonight?
I'm pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing just fine. I want to welcome you to the show, and I want to thank you for taking time out to be with us tonight.
Sure, no problem. Thank you.
All right, great. Well, first off, I thought maybe we'd start out with a little background, some background and what led you on this path of the unknown and the unknown history and the ET and the connections there. What got you into all this? Where did it all start?
Well, it wasn't E.T. the movie, that's for sure, because I get in nightmares when I was a kid. Creepy stuff, man.
Yeah.
I think pretty much not sightings, but In Search of,
Right.
the show.
Oh, yes.
That was Leonard Nimoy, remember that?
I do.
That was a huge influence on me when I was a teenager. And when I read Chariots of the Gods, basically, as a teenager as well.
And so since then you've really been researching this stuff. I mean, once you get into it, it's like there's no stopping, huh?
Well, see, for me, it's, at such an early age, I was curious, when I saw the pyramids for the first time, and when I saw Stonehenge, or even the dinosaurs, I think, what the hell were the dinosaurs? It was crazy. So the whole alien thing to me, remember the movie Fire in the Sky?
I do, with Travis Walton.
Yeah, that movie blew my mind, and it just, I started young, basically, and I never grew up in a household where there was, like, religious dogma or any type of, constraints in that sense, right? Like, I never had a Christian real upbringing, or, when I was a kid, I was with my grandmother and went to church,
Exactly. I mean, and that's what I'm saying. You got pyramids on, so far, 3 different places, and I wouldn't doubt if they're on the moon, too. And you got to wonder, okay, so, they didn't have a universal internet, right? They weren't looking up the plans on the net. So how did all that happen?
It's ridiculous. It's funny. It's great. To me, it's beautiful. It's truly the wonder of God, because the universe is infinite and everlasting, right? So, what was in the doors? What do you say? When the doors of perception are cleansed, things will appear as they truly are, infinite.
Yeah. Well, and I think I kind of wonder why they're telling us, and I think that it comes to they've slowly been breaking it out, so this way they could say, oh, see, there is life, and they don't have to say that they've been lying to us.
Right, they got to do it slowly. That's how they have to do it.
Yeah.
And who knows what's like around the corner, and who knows what they're scared of, and who knows what's really going on, behind the curtain.
Well, that's true too. I mean, that's the whole thing. We don't know, and if they had kept honest with us from the start, there's going to be people who can't handle it, but that's why we have doctors on this planet for those people. But the rest of us want to know.
Yeah, I want to know. I mean, it's our right as a citizen of Earth, basically.
It is. So the pyramids and even the Sphinx. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, I would guess that the Great Pyramid was, at least this is how I understand it, that was built first, and it was probably built by some massive intelligence, and then the other ones were copies.
Yeah. Okay. See, this is how it is. Like there's definitely pyramids that were built 3,000 years ago, but those are, we could tell which ones those were,
Yeah.
When you build on top of older stuff, it means obviously the older stuff's older. So the pyramid field and the Great Pyramid and all that, that's pre-flood. That's ancient, because when you get down to the core, the megalithic, amazing stone blocks, and it's just, it was fine. It was cool, but, when I was a teenager or whatever, there was none of that in my house. Like, it was just kind of, check out whatever you want, read whatever you want, and form your own opinion. So.
And see, that's how it was in my house too, and I am so thankful for that I haven't been brainwashed growing up. Yeah, that helps. And you're a little muffled. I don't know. Are you on a speakerphone, or could you? Are you maybe too close to the speaker or something like that, or?
It's the cell phone, but maybe I just hold it a little too close.
Okay. All right. Well, that's fine. I mean, I can understand you. It's just a couple people, they get complaining. They want to hear it all, and I don't blame them.
Yeah.
But so yeah, so I understand that. I mean, same here. And then I've had my own sightings and stuff too, and that's
Me too, exactly.
yeah. So what type of experience have you had? I mean, tell me about your sightings.
Well, when I was a kid, I grew up in Washington State, so in the Seattle area, and there was always Bigfoot and these type of things. And I remember being probably 8 or 9, camping one time, and seeing some sort of lights, like I wouldn't call them orbs. We seen something that kind of lit up in the forest, and then I'm like following my uncles and my father to check it out more, and it definitely saw something kind of fly off. It was hard to kind of tell because of trees and it was nighttime. I couldn't really make out the craft completely because it was bright, but there were different colors. And then when I was in Cuba, in Guantanamo Bay, which I was there because my stepfather was in the military and he got stationed there. So I spent some time there, which is really interesting. And I would fish all the time. We'd go out in the bay fishing a lot. And I saw two kind of unexplained things. I saw orbs that were kind of orange. I saw those a few times, which, were strange. But then I also saw some, appeared to be, underwater type USO.